Constitution of the United States.
Donald Trump is promising what he describes as a golden age for the United States. But the flurry of actions he's already taken, hours after being sworn in for a second term, are proving controversial. So how will Trump reshape the US over the next 4 years? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to a special edition of Inside Story. I'm James Bays in Washington, D.C. We're outside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, better known as the White House. It has a new occupant, but not a brand new occupant. President Donald J. Trump has started his second term with a blitz of executive orders, in other words, presidential decrees on a wide range of issues. All of them are controversial, some are almost certain to be challenged in court. We're going to discuss all this, not with politicians, political analysts, experts and members of the media, but we're going to get a real world view. That's in a moment, but first a summary of Trump's first days back in power from Katya Lopez-Hodoyan.
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring.
From cracking down on immigration to pardoning January 6 rioters, U.S. President Donald Trump hit the ground running on day one. And much of his support base is elated.
Very proud of him, very proud of his journey. Never surrender, never back down. And just like he's been with the American people since day one, we're here to be with him.
Battling the rising costs, Trump supporters and critics alike agree on the need to lower inflation.
It's a really, really hard economy that we're living in right now, and I can't take it anymore.
The president has threatened to impose tariffs on imports from China, Mexico, and Canada. But there's concern the policies could backfire on American businesses and their customers. It's something that worries small business owners like Ezra Ayek.
We deal with over 450 manufacturers and wholesalers, maybe 2 or 3 or 5 of that are manufactured in America.
Trump's plans for mass deportations are being watched closely, especially along the southern border. An estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants live in the U.S.
More than anything, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's been a lot of talk here at the border, but nobody really knows what's going to happen.
So we're going to sign executive orders first.
Trump signed more than 200 executive orders on his first day in office, and he said many more will follow over the next 4 years. Katya Lopez-Hodoyan, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, the chair of the committee that organised the presidential inauguration, in her speech referred to the people of this nation, the ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Well, let me introduce you to our extraordinary panel today in our Washington, D.C. Broadcast Center. We have Adam Keller, he's a property manager in Texas. Nadine Medley, she's a retired social worker. And Jeff Mayhugh, who has a small family business. Now, 3 people cannot represent more than 300 million people in this country. But we're getting past the talking heads today, trying to find out what Americans think about what's going on. First, I want to introduce you properly. So if I can, to begin with, just a little bit about yourselves. Adam, you first.
Okay, yeah, I'm from College Station, Texas area, Texas A&M. I work in Austin, Texas as a property manager. And I've got 5 kids. Just learned backstage that Jeff has 5 kids as well. I have one on the way as well.
And you have an important other thing that you do.
Yeah, well, for the last, I guess it's been now about 30 years, I've traveled internationally representing the United States in folk festivals throughout the world. Very big in Europe, South America, and in Asia. Certain parts that represent their culture and they're with music and dance. It's live music and live dance. And I've played the music and actually been a dancer with a group called Clog America. And now the group is called American Folk Ensemble. And we've been able to travel for many years doing that. And it's it's been a wonderful opportunity.
Nadine, I don't know if you have musical skills. Very briefly, tell me about yourself.
No musical skills. So I am a retired social worker and educator, originally from New Jersey. I don't know if you hear my Jersey accent, but I'm living here in Montgomery County. And I'm basically, my current position as retired is I take care of my grandchildren.
Okay, Jeff?
Well, you mentioned I'm a father of 5 first, and then I have a small business that I run with my wife. We print T-shirts, is what I tell people. It pays the bills, and I love to read. I read all sorts of books, history, literature. So it's a hobby of mine.
Okay. Well, now let's see where you stand politically. I think the easiest way to do that is ask you about November and how you voted. Adam?
I voted for Donald J. Trump.
Okay, Nadine?
I voted Kamala Harris.
Okay, Jeff?
I left it blank. I know people don't like that, but I didn't vote for either.
Well, we're perhaps going to find out more about why you did that as we continue our discussion. Nadine, I'd like to take you back a couple of years.
Okay.
Trump left office in 2021. It was immediately after January the 6th.
Yes.
Biden took office. At that point, did you think Trump would ever be back?
No, not at all. No, I didn't think. And to be here today in Trump 2025 is very confusing. Very confusing for me. I did not think it was going to happen.
Jeff?
I mean, I thought it was possible. I didn't necessarily think it would happen, but I typically don't rule anything out,
Okay, Adam, you're the Trump supporter. Among the things that he's done is, and we were talking about January the 6th, riots on Capitol Hill, attacks on police officers, and yet he has pardoned about nearly 1,600 people, including members of the groups the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. What's your take on that? Do you think that's a good thing? I mean, Republicans, I thought, were the party of law and order.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I see January 6th as people that were patriotic. They felt like there was an aberration in the voting, that there was something that was amiss there with the delays in the counts and things like that, and they came to Washington D.C. to exercise their right as citizens of our country.
And you do have a right for peaceful protest.
Peaceful
but
protest.
This wasn't peaceful, and those were police officers that were attacked.
Well,
given that this been through the court system, should all these people be pardoned?
Well, it's interesting because I think that there were some people that were violent at the January 6th, everything that happened there. But there were, from what I understand, there were many that were there just to protest. And I think that there was a lack of I guess, military or I guess National Guard, or, I know that President Trump has stated that he gave Nancy Pelosi, who was in charge of setting up the security for that event, the option of having up to 10,000 plus guards to be able to keep that as a, really, I see those people as coming to protest. And, when you're upset about what you thought should have been, in your mind, is not a fair process, I can see where they're coming from with that. Not that it justifies anything violent for sure, but in regards to the pardons, I'm not privy to all of the cases, so I can't really speak to that. But I feel like there probably was reason to look at those things.
Nadine, your response?
I think to see that people have been pardoned for what they were convicted of doing, and from what I witnessed, what I saw on January 6th, it was appalling. Yes, people do have the right to protest. I think that's one of the things about our rights in a democracy. But what I saw that day, and how people were fearful. There are people that have lost family members And then now to have those perpetrators pardoned because he said he was going to do that. If I get back in office, I am going to pardon them. And I'm sure not every person, as you said, Adam, not every person may have been involved in that. But those that we definitely saw, the things that they did, the disrespect and the disregard and the harm that it caused. I never thought I would have lived to see something like that. And it's a sore point.
Okay.
It really is.
Jeff, in terms of these pardons, they're part of all of these executive orders that have been signed by President Trump. Now, this isn't something new. President Trump, President Obama, President Clinton, they've all used executive orders in the past, but it seems it's moving to more and more of these presidential decrees. What do you make of the fact that, you know, it is ruled by decree now, often in this country?
I mean, I think Congress needs to step up and do its job and push back on the executive. I mean, we shouldn't be ruled by decree. And, you know, the idea of just pardoning a whole bunch of people or, you know, look at Biden. I mean, he pardoned his whole family on the way out the door. I mean, why should one person have that much power? I'm pretty sure our founders would look at that and go, they shouldn't. And we created a system to make sure it didn't happen. And I think we've just, a lot of citizens, us as people, we don't hold the right people accountable. We're very frustrated at the president, but we're not really frustrated at our local representative in Congress.
Adam, I mean, a whole range of political issues that people talk about. Given your life, your family, what's issue number one?
Well, this last 4 years, I think that one of the major issues for me and my family is just the amount of things that our money can buy as opposed to before. We've seen a lot of just our household items, groceries, services. I mean, going out to eat is just expensive, and trying to really make ends meet. And I think I can probably speak for all of us here that it's you know, I've seen that hurt our pocketbooks in that regard. I have 5 kids, having to provide for them is a challenge. I would say that's probably the main one for me.
Nadine, do you think you voted for Harris? Do you think that's the issue that she lost on? I mean, to go back to the famous saying, it's the economy, stupid.
Touche. We're all going through this thing with the economy, and I'm not trying to downplay it. However, I know for me, what bothered me most were rights of people. So immigration, women's rights, health rights, that's what I was concerned about in this election. And maybe because I am a woman, I have a family, we all have families, but those were the things that I looked at more versus the economy.
What about you, Jeff, with regard to, would the economy be your top issue? And let me add into that, every country in the world, it seems, after COVID, has suffered very high inflation. And actually, if you speak to the economists, this country is doing a lot better than many others.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a tendency to look at our problems and think that they're worse than they are. I mean, for me, safety and opportunity. You know, I want a place where I can raise my kids, where they can be safe, and there's opportunity for them to grow into the adults that they're meant to be. And I think that's, a lot of the problem that we have with the economy is there just isn't opportunity for regular people in the marketplace. And I get into immigration, healthcare. I mean, I have a small business. You know how much it costs to pay for your family's healthcare out of a small business? And then when you get healthcare, you get a little problem with your eye and you go to the doctor, you find out you can't get an appointment. It takes 2 months to get an appointment. We have all these systems in place and none of them really function properly. And I think we just need to get back to that fundamental ideas of like creating safety and opportunity for people to live their lives.
Adam, you again as the Trump voter on our panel. I mean, among the things he's going to do, I'll quote, "We will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens." Do you think that's the right way forward? I mean, he's going to have a department to take money from foreign countries, the External Revenue Service. The trouble with this, talking to economists, is the historical precedent. If you go back in history, the last time this was done was 1930. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act raised tariffs by 20%, and global trade fell by 2/3 in the aftermath. I mean, according to economists, it seems a pretty risky thing to do. Is it just a threat, maybe?
It's his MO to make threats like that, and I think it's a negotiation strategy. But I'm thinking of the fact that for the last, and it's something that he said in one of his speeches in the inauguration, and he said something like, for far too long we've taxed our citizens and then shipped that money off to Ukraine to protect foreign borders and to help others, whereas we haven't had our problems here solved in our country as much. I mean, we have problems here with our economy, with our border, with our immigration, things like that. I feel like the ability to bring money in is a good thing, and I think that if we can do that through our powers of trade and powers of being a leader in the global market, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing.
But so,
go Jeff.
I own a small business, and when you put those trades in and you buy your goods from overseas, now it makes it harder to get those goods. So now I have less opportunity in the marketplace. I have less things to sell. You combine the trade restrictions with the lack of labor, and if you're a small entrepreneur out there and you want to create opportunity in the marketplace, you want to hire people, you just can't, and you can't find products to sell. So how does raising trades and making it harder to get the stuff that we need help Americans?
Yeah, I think going back to what he was saying, I think it's the, I guess the threat of doing that is, I think he's trying to set it up to where we'll bring back business back to the United States, to where it's going to be more business here, more companies want to come back, and that China will be able to basically will be more even with our trade, and it's basically to give us more opportunity.
But
Nadine,
you can't bully.
I was going to ask you.
Okay.
You're a former social worker.
Yes.
Where do you think the priorities are in terms of what should be done economically?
I really think that as from a business model, some of the things he's saying from a business model may make sense. However, when it's more than just my business or his business, you really have to think globally. You have to think about the repercussions, and that things, when you do these tariffs, there's an adverse, and that's why you can't get the products back, or you don't get the opportunities to produce your products at a better cost and to sell them. It's a systemic thing. And so I look at that system and I'm saying there's a piece that's missing here. And you cannot bully people or bully countries and strong arming them for the sake that you think it's going to be a benefit for us. And I think that's where I take opposition. That's where when I think about holistically, because we are a global economy. We are global people, right? So if you take from one and then hold on to it, and that's how I think this whole golden, gilded age that he's projecting to be, it's all about us. But we cannot work in isolation. We do not live in isolation, right? So that was my stake as a social worker.
Adam, if you look at people who probably are worried right now, they're people who work for the federal government, because he's started a hiring freeze. He's looking at all sorts of ways the federal government works. Do you think that's right?
Well,
aren't some of these very essential roles?
I think that what he's doing, he's shaking things up right now. I think that he's trying to put in the people that are going to make the most impact and have the interest of our country. I mean, his whole agenda is America first. And looking back on the previous 4 years, that was his agenda. In his previous administration, we had 4 years of him, and the economy did pretty well with that. I guess the point I was trying to make earlier, Jeff, is that I don't know that it would be more expensive to get goods, because I think that through with his strategy in place, I think whether it's threats or whether it actually comes to pass that he does put tariffs on these countries, it's designed to drive down the prices for us and to lessen that deficit that we have with China, with Canada. He's brought up Canada recently, but to the hiring of the federal and freeze of the federal employees, I think that his interest is America's interest. I believe. And
the man he's got to do this, Jeff, is Elon Musk. He's going to run this new Department of Government Efficiency. He is the richest man on earth. There'll be people looking at this saying, this is all set up to help the most wealthy in society, not the poorest.
Right. Well, as somebody who's a big sci-fi nerd, I really wish Elon would just focus on getting us to Mars, to be honest with you, as opposed to worrying about this whole Doge thing. I mean, it sets up a lot of conflict of interest. I mean, Trump came out and he's, out there criticizing everybody about, the corruption in the government, and then we're aligning people, in positions where they can be corrupt and invest in their own interest. And to your point about the federal workers, I mean, it's patronage, right? It's how the government moves its mechanisms. He wants to put his people in place so he can get done what he wants to get done, but he wants it to last for administration after administration. And,
I think he wants to put people that are going to not be wasteful and not be inefficient. He wants to put the good people in, I think, is what he's trying to do.
But is he the one hiring them? Does he really know what he's, the people that he's put in place, or is he just replacing a whole bunch of people without actually taking the time to investigate if they should be in the position or not?
I think in the first term he maybe did a lot more of that, but I think now having, had a first term in office and then having 4 years to think about it, I think that he's going to be much more strategic with the people that he puts in.
Adam, I'd like to move you on if I can, because you come from Texas. It's one of the border states. That seems to be one of the big issues. If you look at those executive orders, many of them were about that. I mean, do you think he's got it right on this?
Well, being in Austin, being in a border state, like I said, we manage apartments. Austin has had a huge influx of people come in from California, especially because of the COVID policies of Governor Newsom, and they came to Austin in very high numbers.
But as a businessman, I mean, some of these are very useful, are they not, for the economy?
It's a good economy, but what we're seeing now, though, is we're seeing a lot of influx also of illegal aliens come also across the border. We have specifically in the province that we have a blue-collar demographic that is largely undocumented, and a lot of great people, but there's some in there that are troublesome also.
Nadine, I mean, this is a land built on immigration, is it not? That is what America is, and now all of your families over so many years have come here, and now it's time to pull the drawbridge up. Is that?
And it's again disheartening. I think again I'm going back to the system. If we look at why people want to come here, and we look at what's going on, where they're coming from, right? There's a problem. There's a problem that needs to be addressed. We're trying to stop them to getting into our country, right? But why do they want to come here? And for a number of reasons. But if they're not safe where their home countries are, there's a problem. Now, of course, then we're talking about foreign governments and how we're going to work with that. And we've gotten involved in things that we really shouldn't have gotten involved in. I'll say that, But again, it's a systemic problem. It's a global problem. And some of the tactics that many of the administrations have taken regarding immigration have been despicable. He's not the first. So I'm going to give him that one. I'll throw you a bone on that one. He is not the first. However, people need to be treated with decency.
Yeah,
and yes, there are things that we can do to handle it in a different way.
Yeah, well, I would say that the way that it's going right now, I mean, refugees, that's a different, I mean, that's a legitimate thing.
Okay.
But when you have unvetted people coming across the border that, we don't know who they are. I think that President Trump wants everybody to come, but just through the front door so that we know who you are.
Jeff?
I don't think that he's anti-immigration at all. I think that he's pro-immigration, but he doesn't want it, he wants our country to be a country of laws, that it is. We should have a country of laws.
Jeff, one of the things that he said in his inaugural speech is that he's going to be a peacemaker and a unifier. I mean, does that match what you think about Donald Trump? And are you confident with him back as Commander-in-Chief, the man with the finger on the nuclear button?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter what I think he's capable of. If he believes he can be that thing and he wants to be that thing, then I support him to be that thing, because we do need it. We need somebody to bring us together. And he absolutely has opportunity to do this, specifically on this issue right here with immigration. We haven't had serious immigration reform since 1986. Congress just isn't doing their job. He could leverage all his bad talk to force Congress into writing actual immigration law, because the issue that you talk about is we get people coming across the border who we don't know who they are or what they're doing, and we also have a whole bunch of people coming here because they're just looking for opportunity, which America can provide and can in return help U.S. citizens. We should find a way to allow those people to be citizens so they're paying their fair share of taxes. They're helping the formal economy grow and expand, small businesses giving the labor they need. And then on top of that, we're able to then actually vet and keep out the people we don't want here. Because if you go into neighborhoods that are, have a lot of different countries in there, the people that they ran from followed them here, and they're not happy about it. And Donald Trump's base, in a lot of ways, I took a part-time job working at Home Depot, and I was in there last night talking to the guys, and they want. I brought up the idea of the amnesty for the citizens that are here, and you think, well, a MAGA supporter wouldn't want that. No, they absolutely want that, because they want people to help them do their jobs. People are out there just struggling right now, and people can help.
Nadine, on the point of being a peacemaker, at the same time, for example, in the same speech, he said he was taking back the Panama Canal. Are you sure this is someone who's not going to start some other conflict?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like having this earpiece and another one in my other ear, and it's saying two different things. Like I'm really confused.
The devil and the angel.
Yeah, right. To be a peacemaker, but you're gonna, very confusing.
Well, thank you very much, all of you. I said they were an extraordinary panel, and they delivered on that. Thanks to Adam Keller, Nadine Medley, and Jeff Mayhugh. Remember, you can watch this program daily on television or whenever you want on the Al Jazeera phone app or on our website, aljazeera.com. We'd like to hear from you. Post your comments on Facebook, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or on X, where we are at AJ Inside Story. Next time on Inside Story, I'll be back here to discuss Trump's foreign policy for his second term. Until then, from me, James Bays, and all the team in DC, bye-bye for now.